Okay, so let's bring in the host of Dr. Michael Savage's podcast, The Michael Savage Show. He is a podcast, well, godfather, really, in many respects. And I know that this issue will get you going, Dr. Savage. What kind of politician would exploit a mass shooting for a political billboard?
A politician who has lost Tesla, Oracle, and Hewlett-Packard to Texas. That's who. Newsom is bleeding companies. Newsom is bleeding people who earn a living. But, you know, if he's trying to use guns as the fulcrum, he's barking up the wrong bullet, because we've had many mass shootings in California. And I want to remind everyone listening to this show, if they have forgotten the San Bernardino, California, the shooting in San Bernardino, not too long ago, when two radical Islamists, Siad Farouk and Tashfeen Malik, shot and murdered 14 people and injured 22 others at an office holiday party. That's only one of many. So why Newsom would focus on guns and mass shootings to try and stop the bleeding of people to Texas makes no sense to me. As I said, Oracle, Tesla, and Hewlett-Packard, huge companies, great companies, have left the state. I know people who have left the state. My own family has left the state. I'm the last of the Mohicans. I haven't left the state because I like the pelicans and the seagulls. Aside from that, I also like the fog, the wind, and the rain. But the fact is, I've seen comments on this on Twitter. I posted it this morning, and I said, what do you think about these billboards, Mike? So someone said this. Andy said, I just spent 2 weeks visiting my family in El Salvador. I felt safer there than Los Angeles. I didn't see one gang member, he says, anywhere we went. The president of El Salvador has taken a tough on crime stance with many, many gang members in prison. Maybe that's why so many are coming to the U.S. And I want to continue on that. Most of the people leaving California are leaving because of taxation without representation. Taxation without representation, which triggered a war in this country. Next are the filthy bums in the streets who are treated like sacred cows. People have had enough of it. I've run into hundreds and hundreds of liberal people who have fled because of the human feces in the streets of San Francisco, the shooting up of drugs in the streets of San Francisco, the crime wave that is out of control in California. So no matter what Mr. Newsom and his minions may do with billboards, the people know the truth, and they're leaving. Remember, they don't like the taxation without representation, Mike. They don't like the bums in the streets. I don't like to use the word homeless because that implies that they're entitled to a house in the suburbs. And the crime wave, which, again, is a nightmare out here. It's very dangerous. So I don't think the billboards are going to have much effect. In fact, some are saying Texas may have put them up in order to keep the Californians from coming here. They don't even want them because they pollute every state they go to. Mike, look, if people forget what happened in Vermont, when I was young, Vermont was a beautiful conservative state. Bedrock conservatives lived in Vermont. And then the Upper West Side liberals, if you want to call them that, fled New York after destroying that city back in the 60s with the drug, sex, and rock and roll mantra. So where'd they go? They went to places like Burlington, Vermont. And guess who they put into Congress? First, they made this communist bum a mayor. That's Bernie Sanders, who never held a job in his life. He's a communist through his dirty heart. So he was mayor of Burlington because of the Upper West Side liberals who moved to Vermont. Then he became a senator, and now look what he is. He's actually running the economy of this nation. And this is what liberals, or if you want to call them that, I call them what they are, naked communists, do to everything they touch. They've destroyed California. They've destroyed Michigan. They've destroyed Nevada. I can name 10 states they polluted. And it doesn't end because they put up billboards. People don't want them to come there and destroy their states, Mike.
And they're clogging up the ski lift lines at Okemo and Killington as well, Dr. Savage. Well, something else everyone is talking about this week, Biden's overreaching student debt forgiveness, of course. Not even Biden's biggest fans over at MSNBC could cover up his student loan forgiveness plan. Former George W. Bush administration official Elise Jordan didn't hold back on Thursday's Morning Joe. Take a listen.
I am concerned about it adding to inflation. I don't really understand the timing necessarily, because even politically, what's the bump? What's the point in doing this right now at this specific point? I guess what I find annoying about it is that it doesn't address the higher education cartel, and it basically is infusing money into a higher education system that is basically just corrupt at this point.
Dr. Savage, your take?
Well, German philosopher Immanuel Kant said that if borrowers don't feel obligated to repay their debt, lenders will stop lending and the entire fiscal system will break down. So that's what I have to say about that. Biden is a fiscal imbecile, advised by fiscal socialists like Bernie Sanders, who are controlled by fiscal gangsters, who are then controlled by fiscal cartels like the universities. Other than that, I have no opinion on the matter, Mike. But the fact is, we have an obligation to repay our debts, whether it's student loans, cars, houses, or credit cards. We cannot permit this to happen. And God Almighty, where are the Republicans saying one word about this? All we have is the gobbler, Mitch McConnell, saying, well, we're going to lose the Senate. And as I said first, he wants to lose the Senate because he wants to remain the minority leader of the Republican Party. And he knows if the Republican Senate turns to the Republicans, he'll be kicked out because he's more like a Democrat than like a Republican. So that's that story. Are there any others that I can give
Absolutely. Can't let you go without this. The release of the Trump affidavit this week. Still no indictment, though. How come?
Oh, I have a lot to say about that, Mike. So let me begin at the beginning. Saul Wachtler, the chief judge of the State Court of New York, once said a grand jury would indict a ham sandwich if that's what you wanted. And so Biden wanted Trump to be indicted. We all know why. They're afraid of him. They know that if he runs, he could win. So what they want to do is indict him for a crime he didn't commit, and then they'll do a deal with him behind the scenes, which is Biden will say to him, you're forgiven, you won't go to jail, your children won't be touched if you don't run for office. And that's what they're trying to do here. They're trying to squeeze him. It's worse than a banana republic. If what was done to Trump in this raid was done in Guatemala, the UN would send in troops to try and restore order. And remember this, Biden's idea of equality is to give all of us equal poverty, equal crime, equal hunger, and equal fear. And I have a little doll that I brought because I like props. This is Joe Biden's vision for the average middle-class American. He wants us all to have a sickle so he can bang us with the hammer. He wants us to be serfs in the new America that he is reshaping. He may not know it, but behind him are the communists who call themselves Democrat socialists who envision the middle class looking like this.
Boy, do we have to wear those hats too?
Well, I can sell you one of these. It would say, make Savage great again, but I don't have them.
Well, Dr. Michael Savage, always appreciate your time on a Saturday night. Thanks so much for joining us.
Well, I worked for this one, Mike. Thanks for having me. Love your show. You do a great job.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Dr. Savage.